Hello, everyone. It's been an epic day filled with stories and strategies and speakers telling us about their fatherhood journeys. And as we moved here to the closing reflection and keynote with Josh Levs, I just wanted to thank you all for being here. This is the first time we've ever done Father's Friday, and it really became a lot of energy in the background here as we've built towards June 18th. And I just appreciate all of you taking some time to really come and listen to dads tell their story of how they are active and engaged in their children's lives. And in the process, recognizing that some stuff needs to change. We need to be more engaged in our offices. We need to create more policies to help dads be actively engaged and be caregivers, but also to, recognize that all of us play a part in raising our children. So to close our time today, I want to invite Josh into some conversation. He has been all over the place globally, sharing his story that really began because of a disagreement, to put it lightly, around paid leave at his workplace. And now he's got 3 amazing kids and has a wealth of experience really talking about this subject. So thank you, Josh, for being a part of today.
Thank you. I love how you said now he's got 3 amazing kids. Way too many people leave that out in the introductions. That was awesome. That was the best.
Well, like at Fathering Together, it's all about how do we lead with fatherhood, right? Like, it's not that fatherhood is 5 to 8 p.m. when we come home to work and before bedtime. It's all day, right? And part of my journey has been recognizing that I didn't always think about my kids midday because I was an hour-long commute away, and my wife was closer and could handle the last-minute emergency call from school. And now that's shifted, and I'm that person now, and it's great, but the school system still defaults to my wife. So I always try to really lead with we're dads and we do all this other amazing stuff. Yeah. So yeah. But as you know, in the first panel, we really talked with our panelists around how do we cast a vision for fatherhood? Much like we get asked, what's your 5-year plan at work? We need to start thinking about what's our 5-year plan for fatherhood. And so I kind of posed that question to you to kind of kick off our conversation, just in terms of, as you took your paid leave, what was going through your mind to really set up a long game for success?
You mean when my daughter was born, when that whole battle happened?
Yeah. Like, what was did you have a vision for who you wanted to be as a father in the midst of all of that?
Yeah, I had this vision before I even started fatherhood. And this one friend of mine who's actually profiled in my book, there's a chapter about him. I mean, he's always saying to me, I can't believe the way you stuck to your plan, because he's known me for like 20 years. A lot of things in life are not plannable. But on this front, my wife and I did exactly what we said we were going to do. We knew we wanted 3 kids and wanted to be involved. She wanted to be at home full time for a while and then go back to work. And all these things are what happened. So as for what my plan was, from the very beginning, when I had my first kid, that's when I created a job for myself at CNN, when I went to the big boss and pitched this role as the ultimate on-air fact checker. It was because it was needed, but also because I wouldn't have to travel. And everyone on air travels all the time, and I didn't want to because I wanted to be home with my kids. So I managed to make that happen. So there was my first kid and my second kid. And then years later, when my daughter was born, that's when I had this battle with Time Warner for fair parental leave. And the short version there is that anyone could get 10 paid weeks except a biological father. So it became this big battle when I was like, this is ridiculous. So anyway, my plan at that point was I knew I was needed at home. And even though, I lost in the short-term battle, I had to go back to work. We won the big war, which was to get the policy changed. So I knew I wanted to watch out for other families. That was part of the plan, making sure that we could get this fixed. And they did. They revolutionized the policy, made it better for most moms and dads. But I wanted to make sure that I could have a kind of balance between career and being home that would work best for us. And really, that's the kind of freedom that every family should be able to have, but sometimes you have to really fight for it.
Yeah. Should being the operative term there. And it's been some time since that war happened for you, but clearly, we heard earlier today, there's ongoing fights, so to speak, in terms of not just paid leave, but also just family dynamic and balance in the workplace. And I'm just wondering, from your perspective, how are you seeing the change coming in corporate America and even small, nonprofit startups, but in business, to really help create avenues for parents to be working and parents?
Right. So, well, I always tell people, I work with businesses all the time, year round. This is a lot of what I do now. I ended up leaving CNN after my book came out. I work on this full time. I work with businesses to change this. And I always say it's about three things: laws, policies, and stigmas. So there are laws that we need, like a national paid family leave insurance system that exists in some states that helps build gender equality. At the business level, we need policies. And I always tell people it's about 20% policy and 80% culture inside an organization. So policies are starting to change. The number of businesses that have paternity leave, for example, is on the way up, which is great. Paternity leave is a crucial women's rights issue. We've done all these studies and surveys at my partner, Men Plus Care, and we consistently find that men want more time at home, men want more time in caregiving, but we can't get it. So you need the policies; those are starting to change. But the biggest problem is the stigmas that are in the culture. Right. And my book is filled with guys who took paternity leave and then were fired for having done it because it went against the culture, or who were fired for even seeking a flexible schedule, or even talking about how important caregiving is. And in one of our surveys with the Men Plus Care, I was talking about women say women complain about this even more than men do. I mean, this is a huge problem that stigmas are preventing men from having that freedom. So we're getting somewhere on the policy front, but we have even more work to do on the culture front, because ultimately it doesn't matter if a policy allows something if in the culture it's not made real. So that's where a lot of the work needs to be now.
Yeah, and we were talking before, a couple of weeks ago about paid leave is a great start, but I think to your point, in the communities that we're running and Fathering Together, so many dads aren't sure even how to begin that emotional connection. And so what are they going to even use the paid leave for if they don't have those skills to build that, that bond or understand the developmental processes their kids are going through? And so I think you're so right. And it's something I often think about in terms of our dads even going to the prenatal workshops, going to the hospital and understanding, how to change a diaper properly, and getting comfortable with all the things that go on in childbirth, because there's a lot of messiness that happens. Yeah.
Well, from my fact-checking perspective, I can help you out with some of that.
Yeah, please, go for it.
Overwhelming data actually do show that men are just as good at changing diapers, and a lot of the men's surveys say they change diapers even more than moms do. Moms often think that they're changing diapers more, and usually the reason is that neither parent realizes how incredibly often diapers are being changed.
Right. There's just so many. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, and there's the continuing problem of how ridiculous it is for diapers changing tables to only be in women's rooms, but not men's rooms. And we've been fighting that battle from even before it was sexy, for 10, 15 years. I mean, it's been, so all those things do matter. So yeah, I mean, guys know how to do this and are wanting to do more of this. But having that freedom, having that opportunity is a problem. Plus, there are mentalities. There's ways that we were raised that we can fall into what's called male privilege, in which you think, well, maybe that's more her thing. But just as big a problem is female gatekeeping, in which she thinks, wait, no, I can't let you touch the baby. You're going to drop the baby. You're going to break the baby. And often it's the mother-in-law, the mom's mom, who grew up in a previous generation, who's saying, keep that man away from the baby. He doesn't know what he's doing. And so sometimes you have to be really active about pushing through that from the very beginning. And it makes the biggest difference to start right away. But it's also never too late. If you haven't been doing that yet, and your kid's 2, 3, 4, 5, at any moment when you're like, wait, I got to get more equality at home, understand that that's central to the battle for equality at work. Until men can be equal at home, women will not have the opportunity to be equal at work. So it's really up to all of us to be super active about this.
Yeah, it's David G. Smith and Brad Johnson, who wrote Good Guys. They talk about in their book and in their workshops as well, it's not a zero-sum game, right? Just because we're shifting the pieces of the pie doesn't mean we can't have more pie. And I just love that idea that, and as you bring up, by creating avenues for dads to be more engaged at home, it's also creating avenues for women and moms to step up in other spaces. And to your point, my wife loves working. She's a physical therapist, never wants to not be a physical therapist, but also wanted to make sure she had some time to bond with our kids. And it's that give and take that every couple has to go through. But if you have a conversation and a plan, then you can go out and tackle the bigger challenges as a team, rather than having that infighting and, navigating multiple battlefronts, so to speak, at the same time.
Right. And my experience shows that, unfortunately, plans aren't everything. I mean, there's that old line, man plans and God laughs, right? Because our plan was with our daughter, I would be home for the 10 weeks that anyone else would get. And then in the end, they said no, which was insane. But now, because of that battle, men and women from Time Warner are getting the equal amounts of time. So, sometimes you end up looking at it at a community level and trying to fix it in general. But that said, you mentioned the shift in your life. I mean, once I left CNN and I work from home, and normal times I travel up to a week a month doing events, but the rest of the time I'm home. I then became the one, when my wife was at an office, I then became the one who was home when they get home from school and who could go bring them things at school and pick them up at school. And that was part of what I wanted. That was part of the dream.
Awesome. I'd love to get not that your kids need to be on camera, but do you have conversations or can you notice the shift of expectations from your children? Because I know my daughters are often like, Daddy, you need to step it up, or Dad, you missed this or that. And they're the ones actually holding me more accountable than, say, my mother-in-law or even my wife at times, to say like, Dad, like you forgot this or that. And I'm just like, thanks for the reminder. Good to know. Yeah. So
Our kids have no trouble reminding us of the things.
not at all.
No, I mean, I think of it more in the long term. I'm so happy that our kids, and by the way, it's all about choice. I mean, if a parent wants to stay home for a kid's entire childhood, I think that's wonderful. If you can afford it, most can't, but and that's completely fine. What I want kids to grow up seeing is that you have actual choice, and that your gender is not the reason for that choice. So a dad who's home full time, a mom who's home full time, all good. But I am happy that it worked out the way we wanted, that the kids through their life experience have now seen these things both ways. Because ultimately it's like what you say is so much less valuable than what they see. Right. And when they see this, I think that imprints the messages. So yeah, sure, we get reminded sometimes, but they've seen that we're as capable at home as a woman is. We just do things differently. So when they grow up seeing that, they know that, and I hope it will give them the freedom to give themselves choices.
Awesome. Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. even though there's plenty of times where, I think they just go into the like, I only want mommy mode, or they only want me mode, and it definitely plays off a lot, especially during the pandemic, just in terms of the close quarters we've all had to face and the challenges we've had to juggle just in proximity and keeping relationships healthy and balanced too. So
yeah, no, I mean, during this, it's been one of my biggest concerns has been that they not have cabin fever, being surrounded by just us. We increase screen time. We make sure to give them their space, because the last thing you want is for anyone to feel trapped in the house with people that they're incredibly sick of. Yeah. So I mean, but in a way, it's just accentuated the challenge of all parenting, which is at all times looking at the situation you're in and trying to lead with love and figure out what's best for them and for you. Taking care of yourself sets the right example too. It's important to, and this is the biggest thing most parents give up on, most dads, moms, we don't take care of ourselves, and then our kids see us not taking care of ourselves, and then that imprints the wrong message. So making sure to be healthy and mentally healthy is important too. Yeah,
definitely checking out of work, finding that balance between the work obligations, family obligations, personal, and which is a great, one of the questions I wanted to throw your way is we call ourselves Fathering Together as an organization because it really takes multiple dads, multiple people helping to raise a child, and to find that balance and support too. And are there, communities, or are there places that you go to that you found are rejuvenating for yourself, or strategies in terms of I need some alone time and this is where I go, so to speak?
Yes. I haven't felt the need to physically leave the house for that, except I do my walks and stuff, but I'm religiously committed to my workouts, and I have this time with my trainer, and instead of going to the gym during this, I've been doing it by video with him. I have a weight set at home, and I have my bike, and as a rule, I don't care what anyone's asking me to do during that time. That is my time to do that, and no one gets to get in the way of that. And I try to make sure that, because if I were to get really flexible about it, then it would never happen, because there's always something else I could be doing. So that's my time. And at night, I try to watch some TV show and have, I got my headphones on, and for me, that's calming, and it's what I need. So yeah, I have that, but no, maybe you're better about this, but I don't meditate or do yoga or go off to a man cave or anything. Do you?
I mean, I do like 5 minutes every morning of journaling. I just, while my tea is steeping, I just set my timer and I'll just write. And when the timer goes off, I'm done. And that's a quick way to kind of just compose my thoughts for the day. Sometimes it's just rambling nothingness. Sometimes it actually turns into articles or, you know, strategies to put into a new project. But most of the time, yeah, it's just a quick 5 minute reflection. But beyond that, I'm pretty terrible, I'll be honest. So
You know what this reminds me of, because that's so healthy. So there have been all these studies throughout the entire pandemic about how it's so stressful for moms.
yeah.
And the assumption that reporters made was that therefore dads aren't doing enough. And then I went and looked for the data, because fact checker guy, and the most robust data on stress is from the American Psychological Association. I asked them to go into their raw data and crunch the numbers, because they hadn't. And they came back to me and they said, oh, actually, stress, moms and dads, there's no statistical difference. It's just as bad for dads as it is for mom. But no, literally, until I wrote this, no one had reported that anywhere. Dads are struggling too. And because no one knows this, no one watches out for the warning signs of depression and anxiety among dads. And we don't know to watch out for it in ourselves, because a lot of men assume that women have it so much worse, so they don't want to talk about their problems. So when you have something like what you have with journaling, like some system in which you make sure to check in with yourself and care for yourself, you are also caring for your mental health in a way that's essential.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Meaning me, I was on a panel a few weeks ago around perinatal health and postpartum depression that men suffer. And Kevin Grunberg out in Las Vegas runs an organization called Love Dad, all about postpartum support in a therapy session for men. And the four of us on the panel all talked about the stresses that we had with our first child, but none of us admitted to having depression, right? We were like, oh, well, we were stressed, but we were okay in the long run. And then Kevin gets on, he's like, well, statistically speaking, at least one of us probably had postpartum depression. And statistically, and he just starts rattling off all this mental health that men struggle with, but we always just write it off, right? And I think that's such a critical piece to what we were talking about earlier of like, if we're going to be active in the home, if we're going to be able to step up and be equal co-leaders of the work and the care, we've got to be co-equals in caring for ourselves and recognizing that, doctor's visits are important, checking in mentally. Like you said, you've got exercise, I've got journaling. I'd like to exercise more, but if we're not doing those things, then we are going to be a strain on our family in ways that I think we don't need to be. So
we need to learn to understand what these things even are. I didn't even understand what anxiety was when I experienced it. And I called my doctor. He was like, you made it to age 40 without ever experiencing this? I was like, yeah, I've just always been fine and calm. And when he told me it was anxiety, I was like, oh, that's right, I'm feeling anxious. So anyway, we have no idea most of the time. Right. And that sounds a lot more clinical than it was. Like, it was an experience in which I was like, everyone has it sometime, but I just didn't realize it. And so I'm a perfect example. If I, in the work I'm doing, still didn't understand what anxiety was, then of course we don't. We're not trained to. We're not led to think that. And you're right. We are much better fathers when we take care of our mental health and become aware of these warning signs.
Yeah, and better employees too, right? Like, when I go to work stressed out about my kids' health, I'm not focused on the job. I know that I'm not as productive as I can be. And so the more we can also find ways to reduce stress at home, to reduce stress at work, like, it's a win-win on both sides. And I think that's the other piece that needs to be brought into the business conversation. And we heard a bit of that earlier today in one of the panels of just how important it is to have more holistic outlook on our lives so that we can be productive in all the different sectors. And executive coaches know this, and other people talk about it, but I don't know if it's fully permeated into all levels of fatherhood life. So
well, yeah, I mean, there's so many business reasons, and this is a lot of the work I do. I show how you save money by supporting men as fathers the way you do supporting women as mothers. There was an Ernst & Young EY survey that found men are even more likely than women to switch jobs or careers or take pay cuts, give up promotions, all these things in order to have more time with their families. But a lot of bosses don't realize that that's why the guy left for a different company. They just don't know. So they're losing great women because men can't do caregiving, and they're losing great men because they're going to other companies that treat them better as fathers. So this is the very, very rare case of an actual win-win. When you address the laws, policies, and stigmas to create gender equality in caregiving and at work, you create a more fair society and a stronger economy and stronger businesses.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many more things we can talk about, but we want to keep this quick and short for at least today. And we'll definitely, have more Father's Fridays and more activities coming out of Fathering Together. And I know you're not going to stop on your quest to get all of us educated on this, Josh. So to kind of have a closing question, is there any, I don't know, biggest lesson learned or aha moment in this whole journey from having the battle over paid leave to now that has given you hope for in the upcoming years for this work?
Yeah, I would say that, that when we look at this, the real survey data, because fact checking, right? When I look at the real survey data and I see that the overwhelming majority of men say that caring is far more important than the amount of money that they make. Now, being a caring father, being a caring friend, being open about your own emotions and your experiences, that all those things are so much more important than all the stereotypical stuff. That is very promising for the direction that we're going, but it does take work. Yeah, as we all know, there are people in America and in society who want to move us backward. But there are so many more like you and me who want to do the right thing. And listen, I'll tell everybody, I have resources, information, data at joshlevs.com. And my one rule is that everyone watching has to go join me on LinkedIn. I'm the only Josh Levs in the world. So stop whatever you're doing, pull out your phone right now, go to the LinkedIn app, find me there. I want to answer your questions. I want to address all these topics with you. And I want to know what your struggles are and see if I can help.
That's awesome. And we will have Josh back. Maybe we'll do some clubhouses or other lives events on Facebook and other places to help really destigmatize this and keep the conversation going, because we're all experts of our own experience, but we definitely need those fact checks and that level setting of I'm not alone in this. There are other communities for me to be engaged in. So awesome. Thank you so much, Josh, for your time. Thank you all for listening in for the closing keynote. Want to do a quick shout out and thank you to our two sponsors, Granite Direct and Motivation Media, for helping us craft this whole day, as well as all of our collaborators. You've seen them throughout the day, but we could not have done this without you. It really is a communal effort to really change community. And Margaret Mead said, a small group of people is what really make the change, but it's the next group that really institutionalizes that and makes it a norm. So appreciate you all for being here for Father's Friday here on June 18th. And coming at you next year as well. So peace, everyone. Thank you all for your day.